challenge, because I realized, even as I saw the difference between being under the law of Moses and being under grace, that I was still under the law in my way of thinking about God and about Jesus. And what I realized is I really didn't get out from under the law. When I really got out from under the law wasn't when I just realized I wasn't righteous by my works. When I really got out from under the law was when I saw that the law, or the Torah, was made flesh in Jesus. And I began looking at that as the law of God. Then what happened is I found my mind being removed from a law way of thinking. What I found was I no longer thought about God and what He's done carnally. I began thinking about it spiritually. And in thinking about it spiritually, Paul said something profound. He said, "Clothe upon yourself with the new man, who's renewed in the image of the likeness of the one who's created him." And so what I realized is when you have a carnal way of thinking about things, when you're fellowshipping with the law of God as if it was a carnal law instead of the spirit of truth, you're clothing upon yourself with the old man still. So even though I had a revelation of this law of grace thing, I was still thinking about the work of Jesus as if He was exalted and raised from the dead because of the good fruit that He got to manifest in His life. So I was still knowing Jesus according to the flesh, right? I was knowing the work of Jesus according to the good fruit He got to manifest, instead of knowing it according to what was the truth that was in His heart. And because I was fellowshipping with His work by the carnal mind, I was still clothing upon myself with the old man, instead of clothing upon myself with the new man. And so I was still walking under the law, essentially. And so when this really changed for me is when I saw that Jesus was the law of God made flesh. And that changed everything for me. And it wasn't because I saw Jesus was the law of God made flesh and then I went and figured all these other things out. It was in starting to see that I began to find the Spirit of truth revealing things to me. I could see what He was thinking in His heart instead of looking at what He did. Right? The power unto the life of God manifesting in us is not just seeing what He did, but it's in hearing what was in His heart that brought forth what He did. You see? And that's what, when I stopped seeing the law of God after the law of Moses and I saw it according to Christ, that's when I began being clothed upon in my heart by the new man, who's renewed in the knowledge of the image of the one who created him. Renewed in the correct and precise knowledge is what it's talking about. So there is a correct and precise knowledge about God. And as my mind becomes renewed to that, I find myself being clothed upon by the new man. But if I don't ever know what that knowledge is, I'm never fellowshipping with it, then I'm never really being clothed upon by it. And that's what I found in my first 12 years in grace. I was never really being clothed upon by the new man, because even though I knew I wasn't righteous by my works, I still defined what Jesus did through the flesh. And not only did I find what Jesus did through the flesh, I defined everything God thought and did based on the flesh. Meaning, I looked at what God did and I defined it by my sin instead of by His original design. You see? And so, a big way, I think one of the examples I use is when you judge when man judges what they're worthy of, or we'll put it this way, when we judge what God believes we deserve, or what God believes we're worthy of, based on our sin, we're still under the law.
I've got something I'd like to jump in with real quick. One of the things that's helping